Welcome to Report Desk Africa, your weekly source of insight and background on the biggest stories making the rounds across the continent and the stories unfolding as well. Report Desk Africa guides you through the events shaping Africa from the perspective of journalists who cover these stories firsthand. I'm Blessings Mosugu.
I know. Hello, Africa. I know you're expecting to see Bernard Akede, the usual face, alongside Blessings Mosugu. But yeah, I can assure you, you're going to be getting the same piece of information. And of course, during the course of the event, during the course of the show, rather, you would also get to see Bernard Akede, your lovely face, who usually hosts the show. As she has said, Report Desk Africa is that very unique show that gives you the background story, the insight of whatever it is that has happened during the course of the week across Africa. Stay tuned. Of course, we are going to give you so much more in the course of the event.
And of course, just like we're saying that Report Desk Africa is the show where we give you deeper insights into the stories that we have been covering. We'll also try to remind you of the things that we did forecast a week ago. And last week, we told you that the leaders of Egypt, Jordan, and the Palestinian Authority met in the southern Red City of Aqaba to discuss the war in Gaza and, of course, the surging violence in the West Bank. And we also did tell you that Papua New Guinea's Prime Minister had declared a 14-day state of emergency in the capital on Thursday. That's after 15 people were killed in riots as crowds looted and burned shops.
And finally, we told you that the People's Democratic Party, PDP, has demanded immediate sack and prosecution of the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Bernard Akede, over alleged looting of 44 billion naira. That was huge. And of course, this week, we're going to stay in West Africa, particularly in Nigeria, speaking about the state of insecurity in the country, particularly the recent kidnappings and, of course, the explosion that rocked the southeastern state of Oyo. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after the break.
Well, you're still watching Report Desk Africa, and as much as we have told you what we forecasted last week and what we're expecting this week, it's time for us to delve right into it. Now, bandits last week attacked travelers on the Abuja-Kaduna highway and abducted over 30 people, according to witnesses and community leaders. Now, the abduction took place at Dogonfili, near Katari, along the Kaduna-Abuja highway in Kachia local government area of Kaduna State. Also, 10 persons were kidnapped in the Dutse Alhaji area of the FCT, that's the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, after gunmen reportedly dressed as military men invaded the community. The unfortunate incidents in that area brings to the fore the disconcerting reality that kidnappings, often orchestrated by individuals donning military uniforms, persist despite official denials from the police. And it's so bad now that before we used to talk about kidnappings on highways, but now these kidnappers are invading people's homes. I mean, the sad story of Nabiha, who unfortunately lost her life, and her siblings are still in the kidnappers' den. And we don't even know what their fate is because the deadline for payment of the ransom, excuse me, has elapsed. So this is a very dire situation in Nigeria. And News Central's Abuja bureau chief has been following the story for a while now. And of course, he compiled this report. Do take a listen.
The meeting was called at the instance of the FCT administration with stakeholders at the Buhari Area Council of Abuja. This is following the insecurity being witnessed in the council, which has resulted in several kidnappings that has left many residents unsettled.
Buhari Area Council is the closest area council to the city. Buhari Area Council, we are having 3 boundaries of state: Niger State, and Kaduna State, and Nasarawa State.
Security is one of the key priorities that Mr. President in the Lead Hope agenda would want to face squarely.
The FCT Minister Nyesom Wike assured of government's commitment to tackling the insecurity situation affecting residents.
My coming here today is to assure you that we are very, very serious. We are very, very serious. All those criminals, bandits, enough is enough.
The minister was also emphatic in calling on citizens to desist from paying ransom to kidnappers. He says the administration will go all out to ensure that they mobilize all resources to end kidnapping.
By doing that, you are not helping us. You are only helping them to begin to make demands that they need 100 million, they need 200. Why would I go and give a criminal 100 million? If I give 100 million, will you not kidnap tomorrow? Then he will tell you 200 million. No. I know it's painful. Nobody will want it. But we can't stop it by telling them that we are going to raise money. There's no money to be raised anywhere.
The Sarkin of Buhari called for more security presence within the council, saying it will help in efforts to restore peace.
Appealing since 2019 and 2020 that we are requesting for mini barrack along the Shere Kawu Iguazi. I believe with you, inshallah, something will be done by the grace of God. Buhari Area Council, we are receiving inflow of people from neighboring states. I'm still appealing to the Honorable Minister that we need area command in Buhari so that it will help us in terms of security aspect.
In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadin Uyi.
And there you have it. Very, I wouldn't say sad, because sincerely, these are some of the things that a lot of Nigerians are saying should have been controlled or mitigated or even prevented in the first place. And as Bernard would say, let's go to the meat of the matter. But let me bring in Abuja Bureau Chief Correspondent Amadin Uyi. Amadin, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Okay. I would naturally want to ask that how did we get here? But I think that we are far beyond how we got here, because I remember the ICIR released a statement back in 2023 noting the amount of victims we have from 2013, which was about 31 cases, and to about 2021 where we have over 5,000 cases of kidnapping. So we're not talking about how we got here. And I remember back in 2017 also, where the very popular, I'll put it that way, Evans was apprehended, the kidnapper, and some people were calling him the benevolent kidnapper, the popular kidnapper. In fact, at the point, we saw some police officers taking pictures with him, you know, trying to desensitize the ills of what he has done. And then I already knew that we're going to be having more issues as regards kidnapping. And this is where we are. So let's start from where we are right now. How do we move from here? Where are we as regards security? And of course, in Abuja, where you are, what is the state currently?
Okay, Niyi, I would like to first of all answer your question, because yesterday, first of all, it had always been an assumption. But yesterday, during the stakeholder security meeting, the FCT minister affirmed the belief of why kidnapping is widespread and on the rise in the Middle Belt, the North Central region. Remember that Nigeria had always suffered from the Boko Haram insurgency. Now, what the minister said was, following the intense military activities and pressure on the terrorists, a lot of them had relocated to the northwest and the northwest and the north central region. So it is believed that this kidnappers are daredevil terrorists who are relocated. But all in all, our reality is that, just as was earlier said at the beginning of the program, that now they are no longer kidnapping people on the streets or on the major highways as it used to be the case. Now they go to your houses, pick you, or pick your wife and pick your kids and take you. Now the worrisome part is that there's no adequate security measure to stop them from taking their victims to wherever they want to take them. Just like the case of Nabia al-Qadriya, the kidnappers went to the family house, kidnapped the father and daughters. And there, according to the relatives of Nabia, that they demanded for 100 million ransom. But because the father was in captivity, the father negotiated it to about 60 million. So they now allowed him go, believing that he would go and raise the money. It was because he could not raise the money. Within 2 weeks, they told him that he said he had raised only 10 million. They told him that they were going to send him a message. And that message was the dead body of Nabia. But the thing to note is that when they went to retrieve Nabia, it was not only a dead body that was found. They found the dead body of 3 others, a woman and her daughter, and also a young man in his early to mid-30s. So that means those other victims could not raise their ransom, or their family could not raise their ransom, and they killed them.
Amadin,
but it was Nabia's story that came online and began trending on social media handles.
Amadin, sorry to quote you there, and just let's base on that. Now, we do understand that aside the once the sister that was killed, we have other victims that were laying dead there. I do remember there was a news that caught my attention 2 days just before that particular kidnapping of the al-Qadriya family. Few meters away from that particular estate, we understand that about 10 people were kidnapped and 3 of them were already killed. And this brings back the call for community policing that everyone has been clamoring for. So if the military is raising hell down on the northeast, and now these people are migrating to the north central part, is there no more to be done as regards policing internally so that we can have a holistic security system?
Amadin, are you there?
Can you come again, please? I lost you.
Okay, I'm of the opinion that about 2 days before the 9th of January, where we have the case of this al-Qadriya, there was an adoption just few meters away from that particular estate of 10 pupils, and we know that 3 of them were also killed, and nothing was done as at the time of that report when the new incident happened. This brings back the conversation about community policing, because if the military is raising hell down in the northeastern part of the state, and of course these people are migrating now to the north central part, shouldn't the police be taking charge of the internal security? Is this not something they should be looking into? Because it doesn't look like we should bring the military back into the state to come and fight internal affairs. Amadin, did you get that?
I'm sorry, I lost you.
Okay, while we try to reconnect with Amadin, we rectify his audio there. Blessings. This is my concern. This has been conversations we've been having over time. People have been calling for community policing, what can be done. And this is not something that just started. I remember before this kidnapping, this major kidnapping, there was a case of organ misplacement. I have seen misplacement, or they said touch and follow, touch and go, whereby people are just having their private parts being missing, just like that. And over time, I watched, and I didn't really see a particular thing the government did to mitigate that. When you go to Abuja, naturally, you see that the highways are free, everywhere is okay, the environment is serene. And when all this starts, it's raising concern about how close insurgency is to the power seat. Now, from between, we have Niger, Kaduna, FCT, Nasarawa. These are the ranges, these are the strategic areas where these people are targeting. Shouldn't we be scared?
So speaking of targeting, I would say that because I really want to speak to Amadin, especially regarding the security situation, right? But then again, I think that this is where individual alertness comes in, because the truth is, as far as we know that some of these regions are the regions that these kidnappers are targeting, we do not know when next they'll strike, right? Nabiha's family never would have thought that someone would invade their homes and, you know, kidnap them. So I feel like it's also important to be our brother's keeper at this time, because if you see something, you have to say.
I may not really go along that line, because I know that there was a time the whistleblowing policy came up, and
did we adhere to it?
No, the question is, who safeguard the whistleblower? Now, so, if I walk up to a police officer or walk up to a police station to give information about what guarantees my
so I'm not even. We have Amadin back, but very quickly, I'm not even talking about going to report. Like, I saw this face, you draw the face. No, when you hear something is going on in your neighborhood, just put a call across through to the police. What we should be saying now is the response time. Because, like I said, we do not exactly know where these people will strike. Yes, the security, I'm not saying that they're not doing enough, but they need to intensify efforts. But at the same time, let's say they're guarding one area, something else is happening in other streets. They may not know on time if the neighbors do not put a call across through to them. Now, what we will fault the security agencies for now is if they do not respond on time.
Or they're underfunded, or they don't have enough personnel at the time.
Because honestly, when Nabia's family was getting kidnapped, the father actually called the cousin, right? And then the cousin tried to come, not even tried, he came with some police officers, but they were outnumbered. And that's where we'll come up with the theory of being short-staffed, not having enough. Because how would you come with backup and then all of you are...
The backup is not backup.
And unfortunately, the cousin lost his life. So it was like an effort in futility.
So I think we have Amadin back now. Amadin, let's just get your response. I said this has further push for the conversations people have, or everyone has been having, security experts have been having as regards community policing and, of course, strengthening internal security, just as the military is trying to secure the borders, secure the forest. And I'm still going to come back to the promise the president made about getting forest rangers, because that's a whole lot conversation. We have so many ungoverned spaces in Nigeria. But let's tackle that first, because Abuja is a very significant place. It's a seat of power. How much security check should be done in terms of policing in that particular state? Because once that state has been taken over, then it just simply means Nigeria has been taken over.
Now, I think, Niyi, what is happening in Abuja is a microcosm of what is happening in the entire country. You cannot separate Abuja from Nigeria, because Abuja is like a melting pot of different cultures, is the seat of governance, is the seat of administration of government. And you have Nigerians from several ethnic groups and several ethnicities, even religions, all of them converged on Abuja for whatever reason, be it job, be it an excuse to relocate and whatever. But the reality is that the way and manner our police structure is set up, it is not adequate to police the entire population in Abuja. Now, the report you showed earlier on, you heard the traditional ruler, the Sarkin of Buhari, saying that Abuja borders 3 states. You talk of Nasarawa, you talk of Niger, and you talk of Kogi. Now, we know that Niger has a lot of activities in terms of banditry and kidnapping. So it is only normal that if they have free reign in Niger State, their eyes will be set to Abuja, because they believe that Abuja, you have more people who can raise more money and easier targets. But the truth about the matter is that the question about kidnapping and the issues surrounding kidnapping and insecurity borders on what you just raised right now, which is community policing. During the security meeting yesterday, the Sarkin, the traditional ruler, appealed to the federal government that they wanted adequate equipment in terms of logistics, in terms of weapons so that they will have community members patrol the area. Because once you have the community involved and you have a certain level of structure, it will be easier to protect lives and property. But for the kidnappers to just walk into an estate, the second kidnapping incident you were talking about happened at the Sagwari estate at Duse. We went there, the one that about 3 people were killed. We went there when we heard about it. It's not a village. It's not a rural community. It's a satellite community that is developed with citizens, a lot of them civil servants working inside town. So, you know, I said it earlier, when the kidnappers walk into such an estate, they are working based on intelligence information. Walk up to a particular house, abduct people from that house, and disappear into the thin air. It shows you that there is a certain level of policing and security which we don't have,
all right,
that have made
Amadin,
citizens sitting duck in the hands of kidnappers.
All right, Amadin, I really want us to quickly touch on the issue of financing the security sector, or the lack of it, you know, in this case. Now, we've seen situations, I'm not saying that every security sector in other countries are perfect, but I'm saying that is there not a possibility that if we invested heavily in our security sector, we would be able to at least mitigate this issue of kidnapping, because we will be able to, like, I mean, a lot of people who are culpable get away with it, right? If we reduce the number of people who get away with kidnapping, then we'll definitely automatically reduce the number of kidnappings there are. I mean, call it watching too much movies, but we see in Western developed countries where they can actually trace the bullets, like they said in Nabiha's case, other victims were found. They can actually pick the bullets, trace the kind of guns that were used, trace it to the suppliers, and, you know, all of these takes a lot of resources, or needs a lot of resources. So is there not a possibility that if there is heavy investment in our security sector, you know, we get all the necessary equipment that we need, we will be able to reduce this kidnapping issue?
Okay, first of all, let me speak as a journalist. In terms of investment in security sector, I think in the last 10 years, the federal government has made considerable investment in the security sector. Is that investment enough? Is up to those in the security sector of the country to answer whether it has been enough to be able to tackle some of these challenges. But from my perspectives as a journalist, I think we need to set our priorities right. Let me give you reasons why. First of all, we rely too much on the military. The military is not meant to be tackling kidnappers, not meant to be tackling bandits, not meant to be tackling terrorists. We should be able to have invested in our police structure enough to be able to respond to those challenges. Now, if you go to advanced countries, they have specialized security or paramilitary arms that can handle some of these issues. They have anti-kidnapping squads who are equipped with state-of-the-art equipment. They have forest rangers who are equipped. When we were growing up in the western part of the country, we grew up hearing that we had uncles and several relatives who were forest rangers and forest guards. The big question is, why did we abandon that structure of security or structure of paramilitary or structure of policing? So I think in the 2024 budget, you have over 1 trillion budgeted for security. Is it being channeled to the right need and the right source that can be utilized to tackle these security situations?
That is the big question. Amadin, that is the very, very big question, because with rising cases of, how would I call it now? Disappearing money, allegations of corruption, billions and billions of Nigerians' tax and funds leaving the coffers of the government without explanation. Now, these are the questions that we are going to be asking. But here is my concern. I do remember during the January speech, when the president was speaking, he promised forest rangers for the ungoverned spaces. And I remember recently, too, due to this occurrence, the former Minister for Communications and Digital Economy, Issa Pantami, reacted and said, why have they not started using the name SIM policy? Because if we said everyone has linked their lines, linked everything, how are these kidnappers, how are they calling and we can't trace these calls? How are they making contact with the family and we can't track them? And another concern, another school of thought is some would say insensitivity of the government and, of course, the police. And here is the place. Recently, the president visited the, what would you call it, inauguration, inauguration of the Imo State governor. He's returned back to office for second term. That is Uzodinma. And it was there. That would have been a great opportunity to speak to the heart of the people when they are at their lowest point as to what is going on or to commensurate with them. But we didn't see that opportunity taken. In fact, when the police spokesperson, one of the police spokesperson would speak, he was mentioning that Nigerians should not cry more than the bereaved. Now, these are comments and narrations that have raised eyebrows, because these are the times where the Nigerian government need to do something as soon as possible. This kidnapping we're talking about started with one chance. And all of a sudden, it's now no chance, because if you get kidnapped, there is a high chance that you might not come out alive. And with this current economic situation, where will you get such an amount of money, knowing what dollar is saying to naira? So in just quick words, the governments, should they, can Nigerians really trust the government as regards this special intervention squad that has been inaugurated by the IGP to actually nip this issue of kidnapping in the bud?
Now, for me, I think that there's a responsibility at various tiers. Where the government should be blamed is that Nigerians did not vote for the IG of police. Nigerians did not vote for the chief of army staff. Nigerians did not vote for the chief of defense staff. Nigerians voted for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And Nigerians expect that he should be able to tackle the security challenges. Now, it is not enough to vote in money to security agencies saying this is enough. Is there proper follow-up? Is there proper scrutiny? Is there proper monitoring of how those funds are utilized? Because that is where we have a very, very wide gap. Because like I said, over 1 trillion budgeted for security agencies to improve security agencies and tackle insecurity. At the end of this year, that money will be spent. But the question will be, how was the money spent? Whose responsibility is it to monitor these appointees on whether they are judiciously using those monies or how they have spent those monies?
Right.
That is the questions we as journalists are asking them, because for us, it's not just enough to budget this money. So like you said, the box falls on the table of the president and his appointees, the ministers. Okay. We have a minister of police affairs. We have a minister of defense. They should be able to brief the president and update the president on how these monies are being spent, and whether Nigerians are getting value for money. Okay,
Amadin, thank you so much. I want to appreciate you, Bureau Chief in the Federal Capital Territory. We'll definitely keep an eye on this development, and we're really hoping that those still in captivity can make it out in one piece. Thank you so much, Amadin, for following this story and giving us updates, and we'll definitely be looking to you and your team over there to give us more updates. Thank you.
Thank you, too.
You're still watching Report Desk Africa, and when we come back, we'll take a look at another very devastating situation in Ibadan. You don't want to miss that conversation as well. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Is it a bomb? Is it a gas leak? Is it some sort of detonation of some sort? These are questions that remain on the mind of residents of Ibadan, the state capital of Oyo. On Tuesday at 8 p.m., just as this loud explosion rocked part of the cities, leaving people scampering for safety. Because the explosion was, heard in many parts of the ancient city. There was confusion about the exact cause and location, while some residents described the incident as a tremor. Others said it could have been a gas explosion, just as I said earlier. While the governor of Oyo State, Bernard Akede, has called for calm and residents not to panic, we do know that a lot of people have been affected. 3 fatalities so far, many injured. In fact, we know that the School of Nursing hospitals and, of course, the University College Hospital have also been affected. We're now joined by News Central's Bernard Akede, who has been on ground since the incident happened, and I've spoken with residents. Bernard, because of our time, I would have wanted us to take some excerpt of some of the things you sent in earlier, but because of our time, I'm going straight to you. I took the liberty, because when I listened to the Oyo State governor speak, that it is as a result of some illegal miners, and some are saying it's as a result of dynamite explosion. I took the liberty of checking online what could cause a dynamite to explode, and these were some of the variation. Great variation of temperature, intense solar rays, shocks, electricity, spontaneous decomposition. And I was asking myself, I also took the liberty to check the weather forecast for that particular day, and it was around 34 degrees Celsius. Now, we do understand this happened about 7:45 p.m., which was late at night. So we cannot say this is as a result of high temperature. But from what you have heard on ground, aside what the governor has said, what is the major cause of this explosion?
Well, thank you for having me, Niyi, and blessings. I think, on the contrary to what you have said, I think actually high temperature could actually have been one of the things, if not the major thing that triggered the explosion of dynamite. Remember that these dynamites were not out in the open. That's if we actually are agreeing that that is what caused the explosion. It was stored in a certain place. Some are saying it was in a vehicle. Some are saying it could have been underground somewhere. But wherever it was, it's been really, really hot in Oyo State, particularly in Ibadan. The Harmattan is still coming down so much, so it's really cold in the morning and then extremely hot during the day. So it's possible that wherever they have been stored, there was a lot of heat there, and that may have been what ignited or triggered these explosives, leading to what we see here. And then again, from the magnitude of the explosion, and looking at the crater that was created by the explosion in the ground there, who is to say that it was just one or two? It appears to have been more than just 1 or 2 sticks of dynamite, if truly it was dynamite or whatever explosive it must have been. It must have been a pile or something, more than one. But if it's one, then it must have been something really, really big. But, the bottom line now is that the impact, the effect of that explosion was felt beyond the 500-meter radius of this place. Of course, the 500-meter radius will be the buildings and whatever is around this area. That's what would have, that taken the bulk of the explosion. But beyond the 500-meter radius, we've seen doors, windows shattered. We've seen cracked buildings. We've seen ceilings, roofs, asbestos come down from more than 1,000 meters radius of the epicenter of the explosion. So one thing we know for certain is that whatever went off was big, and it did go off big.
All right, Bernard, we remember that when this happened, the state governor, Bernard Akede, did come out to say, amongst other things, now he mentioned some compensation made available for the victims and the families of those who lost their lives, sadly. He said that those who were, in the hospitals will be, the medical fees will be sorted. And of course, some of the other victims who lost their buildings and their properties were also lodged in hotels. But also among some of the things that he said was the cause, like we're still trying to debate. He mentioned that there is a possibility that an illegal miner had an explosive hitting somewhere, and that kind of raised, eyebrows, especially by netizens, saying that it took less than 24 hours to figure out that it was an illegal miner. That means that they knew that something like that was happening, and then nobody did anything. But aside all of that, have there been any other new information that has surfaced since then? For example, like what exactly happened? Because as at the time, it was still speculation. So is it solidified now, or is there any other new information we can hold on to?
And sorry, Ben, just to add this so that we can answer that together. I remember I caught wind of an information on Vanguard just this morning, where they were able to confirm from some sources and the survivor they spoke with that foreigners were actually living in that particular building, and they've been there since 2013. Some also Nigerians that were living them alongside them. Now, someone who is living close to the building claims that he was about to go and pray, and he saw fire from that building. And while trying to pick up his fire extinguisher to go there, someone ran out there. Some people were running out of that building alongside their children, saying it has gone past what a fire extinguisher can actually put off. And that's why I asked previously that I'm not saying a heat can cause it, because according to what I saw online, it's a great variation of temperature. That is, that heat must be so huge for such an explosion to occur. As Blessing has said, are there any other information? I remember the last conversation the governor also said, mentioned on air. He said they know the name of the company. So I don't know if you are privy to some of those information as to what are the nationalities of these foreigners, if they are foreigners, and of course, who are the people involved in this illegal mining.
All right, thank you. We spoke to a former Commissioner of Police, Fatai Owusheni, I beg your pardon, and he's now special advisor to the governor of Oyo State on security matters, and he did address some of these things that you just asked. To start with, he said it's still an ongoing investigation, so there's certain information that they would not let out to the general public. I remember that you're going to see a lot of things on social media, some fake, some real, some coded, like we call it, but we can't exactly conclude on what we have. So information that we have as at now, like you clearly stated as well, that some of the persons resident in that building were foreigners. As a matter of fact, the nationality that was largely mentioned was Mali, that the person is Malian. But Mr. Owusheni did mention to us that it would not be, Owusheni, I beg your pardon, he said that it would not be surprising to have foreigners living in such a residence. It would not be surprising to find out that some of them may be involved in mining activities. For people who know Oyo State, particularly Ibadan, you know that there are mining activities going on in and around the state. However, there's also illegal mining activities going on around the state. You know, so it's possible that these people may have been illegal miners. Now, at the outskirts of Ibadan, or rather outskirts of Oyo State, there's mining going on in that place, and there are illegal mining of solid minerals. Now, the governor, according to what we heard, has reached out to the federal government to say that the outskirts of the town should be manned. Now, I heard you guys talking to Amadin earlier about rangers, forest rangers. Mr. Owusheni did mention that the governor also talked about having forest rangers to man some of these places, because Oyo State is also, or maybe Ibadan, Oyo State actually is also bordered by parts of Benin Republic. And there are people from certain countries like Mali, like Senegal, and other parts of Africa, West African countries, that come in, some illegally, to mine solid materials, solid minerals. Now, to drill into the earth, into rocks for solid minerals, you need certain kinds of explosives, which is where we are coming to now. Explosive, and particularly the kind of explosives that are used for mining and drilling, are dynamites. Now, dynamite stored under high temperatures is a risk. Now, how long have these dynamites been stored in this particular place? What kind of place have they been stored in? What's the temperature of this place that they've been stored in? These are things to look at, and these are some of the things that may have triggered the explosion. Now, coming back to what you were saying, Blessings, what further information do we have? We had information about casualties and the injured. Earlier, we had about 77 and beyond, and then about 3 fatalities. It saddens me to say that the casualty numbers clearly have increased, even though we don't have the official figures. Look, earlier we were here, and from behind me there, where the rubbles are being dug up, I saw with my own eyes body parts being put into body bags, and it was not a good sight at all. At some point, we had to wear nose masks. I still have mine. Tosin, the camera operator, has his, because, the stench of decomposing human flesh filled the air, sadly. That information, would not get out just yet. The number of deceased will not get out just yet, because, again, it's an ongoing investigation until when certain things are certain before they'll begin to give out this information. But the unfortunate thing is, the longer it takes for authentic information to come out from the appropriate authorities, the more chance is given to persons on social media to tell whatever stories they want to tell. And that's where I think journalists like us need to get the job job done. Social media or citizen journalists will only continue to thrive when proper journalists do not put out the story. But then proper journalists can only put out the story when we get proper information from the right authorities. So there are the challenges that we have at the moment. But again, to answer your questions, things have changed since we last spoke. A lot of residents who have been away from here have come in here and they've been moving out their belongings, at least the much that they can salvage. There's been a setup somewhere not far from here by the state government. We had pictures and videos of that, where certain authorities are taking record and taking information from persons who have suffered losses within and around this place, not just from here, from as far as Mokola and other places in Ibadan, so that the government can see how they can help and to give some kind of compensation to people who have suffered losses.
Bernard, we would have loved to get more information. This is really saddening, to be honest. It was not like it's a good thing that we had that number of fatality, but it was quite a relief to see that it wasn't that much at the time. At first it was 2 dead and then 77 injured, but the fear was that the numbers will increase, and it's so sad to see that it's actually true. But Bernard, thank you so much for the updates, and please do stay safe, and we're definitely going to reach out to you again.
It may be more than that.
Thank you so much, Peter. Blessings, these are the questions that still remain to be asked. What do they mine? Who are the illegal miners? Why are they in possession of such powerful explosives? So many questions. I even heard that the House of the Chief, late Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Bola Ige, was also affected. Some schools have been shut. I'm wondering how the lives of those people that have been put on hold will actually progress with all this.
Well, one can only imagine, but like we said, we're definitely going to keep you updated on the situation as it unfolds, and Bernard is still on ground. But very quickly, let's take a look at what we're expecting in the coming week now. The first story on our forecast list is that the United Nations World Food Programme has said on the 17th of January 2024 that it was working with Zimbabwe's government and humanitarian agencies to provide food to 2.7 million villagers in the country. And more than 60% of Zimbabwe's 15 million people who live in rural areas are increasingly affected by a cycle of drought and floods made worse by climate change. The United States Agencies for International Development, USAID, said anybody living in areas of greatest concern like Zimbabwe, southern Malawi, parts of Mozambique, and southern Madagascar as well will not be able to feed themselves until early 2025 because of El Nino.
And we move to Morocco, where it deals with water crisis. And of course, an allocation of $14 billion has been allocated for the National Drinking Water Supply and Irrigation Program, which will be released from 2020 to 2027. The installation of the seawater desalination station in the Dakhla region is ongoing and should be operational by June 2025.
And finally, on our forecast list, in a statement on Thursday, January 18, the Vice President of Nigeria, Kashim Shettima, expressed optimism that the African Continental Free Trade Area, AfCFTA, would help vitalize gross domestic product growth on the continent. Now, Shettima also said this based on the World Bank projections. AfCFTA would increase Africa's GDP by $450 billion in 2035 and exports by more than 81%. He said the need to increase intra-African trade, currently at 15%, and its potential to raise the continent's GDP are some of the compelling reasons why the AfCFTA agreement must be allowed not to fail. Now, you would notice that...
I'm more interested in this last one.
I know, right? But, I mean, our time is fast spent. That's why I'm talking like I'm fast-forwarded. But at the end of the day, we really hope for a better Nigeria.
Sincerely, all around in terms of security, because at the end of the day, if nothing shows forth in terms of security, there can't be a stable economy. And we hope that all these things are nipping the bud as soon as possible.
Hopefully so. Thank you so much for staying with us on Report Desk Africa. This is the much we can take, but do join us same time next week as we give you headline stories like you've never seen before, because we're not only going to give you the stories, but we're also going to help you make sense of the situation. And of course, we'll still keep you updated on the security situation and of course the issue of the blast in Ibadan. Thank you so much for staying with us. My name is Blessings Mosugu.
And I am Niyi Omoniyi. See you next week.